All right, let's show that Mr. Moody is absent. All the selectmen are present. Consent agenda warrants register number 13, payroll register number 13, 4/1/2021, number 14, 4/8/2021.
Make a motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion to approve the payroll register as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We have an application for a game of chance at the American Legion Post 39.
This is an annual renewal of their license to play cribbage.
All right, looking for a motion?
Make a motion. We have let the Legion have their game of chance.
All right, we have a motion and a second to award the game of chance to the American Legion, post number 39. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Is that the right pages first?
I looked at it real quick. I thought that was the page that had all your signature lines on it.
Okay.
I probably haven't filled out the top of it yet. While Mr. Vinziano is signing, I'll just remind the board that I did sneak in both sets of minutes for you to approve of the last selectmen's meeting and of the budget advisory board meeting as well. So they're both in there.
All right, accepting the meeting minutes of March 29th, 2021 and
April 7th.
April 7th, 2021.
Make a motion, we accept both meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from March 29th, 2021 and April 7th, 2021. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Old business, Mr. Savage?
None for me.
Mr. Gopian?
None for me.
Mrs. Wyatt? All right, items of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
Just a couple of things to pass along to you. Madison Paper had their hearing before the Maine Supreme Court last Thursday at 9:15 in the morning. After talking with our lawyer afterwards, it's very brief. They heard 3 minutes from both sides. Madison Paper had 3 minutes to offer a rebuttal, and the justices seemed very aware of what was going on, and they asked a lot of pointed questions, and in doing so, I think it fared well for our case. So we unfortunately will not hear what the justices rule until July at the earliest, hopefully not too much longer than that. If they rule in our favor, that's it. There's no more appeals left for Madison Paper. If they rule in Madison's favor, it goes all the way back to the Board of Property Tax Review to start over again. That's something we really don't want to talk about. Speaking of the Board of Property Tax Review, Eagle Creek is going into mediation with the town of Anson. And so just like Eagle Creek has an abatement in Madison, they also have one in Anson on their side of the hydro assets. If they do reach a settlement with Anson, that will eventually become public information. So our lawyer says we'll kind of watch and follow what happens in that particular case. And eventually we will have to go to mediation with Eagle Creek before that abatement will get to the State Board of Property Tax Review. Just the other thing I was going to note is I believe that Summit Natural Gas has started marking, and they'll be doing some work on Jones Street. I want the public to know and you to know that Summit Natural Gas is going to be working to connect natural gas down Old Point Avenue, across to Jones Street, and then up to the Madison Electric transfer station. It's not called a transfer station. Marty, what's that place called?
Substation.
Substation. So, please don't take your garbage to that substation.
Thank you.
So that will be a project that will hook up the new diesel generator to natural gas on that site. And so if people call or have questions about what's going on Jones Street, Summit Natural Gas will be digging up the side of the road. Marty's obviously been involved with it, Madison Electric. Jeff Wright's been involved with it from the road side of things, and the state DOT as well. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you. New business, public. I'd like to open a public hearing to take comments on proposed changes to the following ordinances. The first one, A, site review, chapter 484.
All right, in your packets and on your desk, I think I left you the full 40-some pages of the changes to site review. This is the public hearing that is required before it goes to town meeting. You as the select board have already reviewed this. The planning board has worked on it for about 4 months over the course of the winter. And we do have one of our planning board members here, Randy Bliss, is here. I had talked with a couple that were going to join by Zoom, but as of this time, we don't have any visitors on Zoom in regards to this. So I'll refer to this short sheet, which is kind of the summary sheet, which just refreshes your memory that the changes to site review at the beginning of site review were intended to change the threshold by which a project has to go to site review. In our current form, site review is required by the planning board for any commercial development regardless of the size. And so if you just want to put a 1,000 square foot addition on your commercial building, you have to go to the planning board, you have to get plans drawn up, you have to go through all the expense of hiring a surveyor. And the board found it to be a little too cumbersome for some of the basic projects that they worked on last year. Last year they did 8 site review cases. That's the most they've done in any recent history. So we looked at a couple of other ordinances, particularly the town of Skowhegan. Skowhegan has a 5,000 square foot threshold. So if you're doing a 5,000 square foot project, then you go to site review. We altered ours to a 3,000 square foot project, but it also depends on the complexity of the project. Let's say there's another company that wants to put a battery storage unit in. In fact, there's one going before the planning board tomorrow night. Now, a battery storage unit is very small as far as square footage, but it's very complex. So the code officer would say, oh, okay, for a battery storage unit, even though it doesn't meet the 3,000 square foot threshold, it still is going to go before the planning board because of the detailed nature of it. So those are the changes that were done in the front. In the back of on the second page, Article 7, we added lots of new language specific to big, complicated projects like battery storage, salvage yards, solar arrays, wind turbines, and cell towers. That's just new language that was brought in and gone over in good detail with the planning board so that we'd have specific standards for those types of projects. The planning board is undertaking their 4th solar array project in a year. And there's probably more to come because Madison has such available farmland for these types of projects, and the state has put so much incentive on solar projects. But they're complicated, and this will help the planning board with that. Other than that, there were no changes to the actual standards, no changes to the process of site review, and so I'm very pleased at the thoroughness that the planning board did, and I just see if there's anyone that has any questions or concerns about it.
Any questions or concerns? Mr. Gopi?
Yes, the greenhouses that are popping up every place?
Yes.
Now, does this apply to them?
No. Because on the first page there, the third point down, create a list of 5 criteria that site review would not apply to. Agricultural projects and buildings does not apply to site review.
So growing goats, agricultural?
Growing legally sellable marijuana is agricultural, yes.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We'll move on and open the second public hearing, which is about salvage yards, chapter 154.
So these two ordinances are related because in the changes to site review, we gave the planning board authority to review a salvage yard or a junkyard. Now, we already have an ordinance particularly to salvage yards and junkyards. That's chapter 154. So to make those two ordinances mesh together, we wanted to change the wording that allows the planning board to do a finding of fact and deliver to the municipal officers, which is the select board, their opinion and recommendation. According to state law, only a select board or town council can issue a permit for a junkyard. A planning board or a code officer can't do that. So we have to have both boards involved. This allows both those boards to have an involvement in this. The only other thing that we changed under 154.4B is we added that Maine DEP can be a resource to help the town define a body of water. There's oftentimes confusion, especially if it's very dry, as to whether a ditch is a stream bed or a potential body of water. So those are the only two changes to junkyards and automobile graveyards.
Any other questions on, any other comments? Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we'll open the last public hearing on the Chapter 399, Vehicles and Traffic. It is open.
This was a request from Julie Forbes, the head librarian. As you're probably aware, that most public libraries offer internet services, and it's very common for people to park in front of the library to use the internet. In doing so, it kind of takes up some of the spaces for some of our older patrons that want to get parked close to the library. So Julie has asked if we could put a, I think I wrote down here 30, but we've actually talked about a 60-minute parking limit from the corner of Pleasant Street and Old Point, about 100 feet, not 500, up from the library. So I apologize I didn't get those edits into your packets, but it's a 60-minute parking limitation on Pleasant Street, 100 feet, which covers from Old Point Avenue up to the front of the library. At the Selectmen's meeting where we discussed this a few weeks ago, the question came up about enforcement and so forth. And I talked to Julie, and she has no problem calling the deputies if someone really is abusing this type situation. And this gives the deputies something to enforce if we have it written in ordinance, and we'll have a sign there as well.
60 minutes too long.
Well, Julie wanted to make sure that if one of their patrons needed to get in and use the computers or whatnot inside and get back out, but they wanted to park in this area, she thought 60 minutes would give them time to do that.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions? Comments or questions? Questions or comments? Seeing none, this public hearing will be closed, and we'll move on.
I would like to see the board make a motion to take these 3 ordinance changes to town meeting.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we take the 3 ordinances to town meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to take site review, chapter 484, salvage yards, chapter 154, and vehicles and traffic, chapter 399, all the changes to town meeting. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Department heads reports. We have on our desk the sheriff's report. Jeff is not here.
The road commissioner is not available tonight. I just will say that spring cleanup, they'll officially start going through the in-town areas next Tuesday, the 20th. And they'll continue as they traditionally do, up one side to pick up and down the other. We just try to encourage people. I've already seen it. I'm sure that Jay has seen it. There's some pretty big limbs laying out by the side of the road. This is really just brush and leaves only. Please don't bag anything up. So that should start next Tuesday.
All right. All right. Donnie, anything from you?
No.
Fire chief?
Tim's gonna bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So under Don's department head report, we have an opportunity that's come to the town to purchase a rescue unit, which would be a replacement for the current rescue vehicle that is owned by AMS Ambulance Service. So let me just tell you what the opportunity is. Some of you are aware of it. I did email out some information last week. The town of Winslow has a 2016 unit Don has some pictures if you want to pass them around. I made this, actually, Mr. Savage made it available, made it aware to me. I followed up with the town of Winslow. They were auctioning this off with other pieces of equipment, and they did not get the bid that they wanted to get at the auction, so they still have this unit for sale. It's a 2016 Dodge Ram.
15.
Are you sure it's a 15?
Well, that's what's in this report right here.
Right, but I talked to the fire chief down there today.
Good.
He's 90% sure it's a 16, and he wrote that information wrong. So this model here is equipped with all the compartments that a rescue vehicle is typically equipped with. It has space on it, and we talked about it as Don and several of his captains and deputy chiefs went down to take a look at it. It has the capacity to take our cascade system, which is very important. That's the system that fills SCBA bottles at the scene. And so that's probably one of the priority items that's on the rescue. And so this one does not have a cascade system. It's been basically, everything that's on it has been taken off, but it could be retrofit to fit our cascade system. So, price. They got a high bid of $49,000 at the auction. They did not accept that bid. They tried to negotiate with the high bidder to see if they could come up closer to where they wanted. I got on the phone with the chief down in Winslow today, and I said, okay, if 50,000 didn't do it, what does 55 sound like? And he says, that won't do it either. I said, okay, you've got to give me some help. You've got to tell me where you need to be on your end. He said they put a price on it, an asking price of 78,000. I said, okay, that gives me an idea of where you're at. But he also said he understands that that's just an asking price and they don't expect to get that. So after Madison Fire has had a chance to look at it, it certainly is an upgrade. It'll be almost a 20-year upgrade from the unit that you have now. I would like to go in to ask if they would accept a bid of $65,000. We have $50,000 already raised in fire equipment capital. It's sitting there already raised right now. We have seen some savings this year from our TIF account that we budgeted for some items that we did not spend and we will not spend. So I believe between the $50,000 in capital and another $15,000 in TIF, we have the funds available to make an offer for this.
And the capital is from fire equipment.
It is fire equipment capital.
All right.
Yeah.
So I assume that 2016s, these kind of trucks don't come around very often. I mean, usually everything is 20 years old by the time anybody sells it. So what, did they just upgrade or did they?
So when I spoke to the fire chief down in Winslow, I asked him, why are you getting rid of something that's only 5 years old and it only has 17,000 miles on it? They are changing their focus in the fire and rescue service in Winslow, and they bought another ambulance. So they're going to try to go after the revenue from transports. If I'm saying that right, that makes sense. So they're going to make revenue from ambulance transports, and they don't use it. In fact, this rescue has not left the garage in 8 months. So it's just not being utilized. They need to move it so that they can help defray the costs of the third ambulance that they bought. Certainly a different focus than our, mutual aid and our fire here.
The rescue we have now is a 97. The mileage is not the problem, 26,000 miles. The problem is it's rusting out. Last year or year before last, we have 2 tanks on it, diesel tanks, and we could not get the brackets to hold one of the tanks in, so we had to remove that. Now, I just took it to the, get it inspected. It needs probably $3,000 to $5,000 in repairs to have some kind of fab shop. What's that?
Radiator support.
Radiator support. And I'd just like to get out of it from the other side of the river. This will belong to Madison Fire. It'll do the same thing it's done for the last 40 years. We'll still respond to Anson or Skowhegan or wherever we go. But I'd like to just have it in our ballpark. We'll deal with it. We'll do what we want to it. Use it as we have for the last 40 years. Anything you want to add, Dan?
How high are we going to go here, Tim? how high, I mean, we're 13 short of the 78, so I mean, do you think 13,
Well,
I know the car dealer guy's gonna come out. But I think you have to have that though. If he says, we won't take 65,
as long as the Winslow Fire Chief isn't on Zoom,
right?
we can talk about this.
Yeah.
So,
Turn Zoom off and the camera, whoops, sorry.
Oh, it's a good question, really.
so they realize that there's a limited audience for this type of vehicle.
Yeah.
And if they had gotten 60 or 65,000 out of the auction, they might be thinking differently. But since they only got 50,000 and they wouldn't let it go for that, I would like to offer them 65,000 and hope that they would at least come back with a counter offer.
Okay.
So I don't think that they're going to hold our feet to the fire to go all the way to 78,000. But you've got to work it a little bit.
Right,
So
but I mean, if you're talking that and we only have 65 to spend, then your feet are kind of to the fire.
right. So from what we have saved in TIF, we have more than 65 to spend. I'd like to offer 65. Now, if the board is agreeable to enter into this, you can give me a threshold right now that you can go to. But that way you wouldn't have to come back and forth in meetings and so forth, or by email to try to, approve something.
What does the board think? Is there something going on?
How much more do we have? I'm sorry.
So looking at we incurred two savings out of TIF this year. One, we had to move some money over into our revolving loan account. When we made the budget, I budgeted 60,000 for that. We ended up, after the audit, only having to move 30,000. So we have 30,000 savings right there, 28,000 roughly. And we do have some savings because we didn't spend all of our money on road salt and calcium because of a very mild winter. So we have some savings there. I don't want to cloud the issue because that's really Jeff's budget. But I would say between the 50,000 in capital and what we saved by not putting all that money back into the revolving loan. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Hagopian might have been on the other side of that conversation last year. We dissolved our revolving loan account that we had with USDA, and in doing so, we had to make our books match. And we thought that was going to cost us $60,000. It only cost us about $30,000. So that $30,000 we have left from there, and the 50 we have $80,000 that we could spend. Now, one of the other things, and Don and I have talked about this a little bit. He has some room in his budget, in his regular budget, that would go towards the few $1,000s it would take to maybe move some of the equipment over or make the things fit on this as well.
So if we said don't go over, I'm not sure the rest of the board is interested, but don't go over 75, I mean, that does give you some room. Obviously, we want to get it as cheap as we can. What does the board think?
$75 is still a really good deal. We're just, Madison Selectmen's buying a pickup with a plow for $52,000, and that's a 2500 series GMC. This is a 3500 Dodge, so it's a one-ton with a winch, all set up in the back. I don't even know what that thing would go new.
Over 200, I would say, wouldn't you, Dave? The price of that new, I mean, if you,
Winslow paid $120 for it, new, just the truck.
Yeah.
And then when they put all the containers and whatnot around it, they have $150 in it.
yeah.
So
Savage.
The town I work at full-time during the day, we bought a very similar truck. It's Ford. It was almost 200,000 last year. Give you an idea what they're going for. They're not cheap.
And we have been dealing with this for a long time. So it's, and as I said earlier, something that's 2016 doesn't come available very often. So with only being 5 years old, these things usually are, as ours is, 20 years old. Savage.
The current rescue we have, is there any cost associated with stepping away from that agreement, or is it just go back to the ambulance? How's that going to work?
since you are the members of the AMS board, you probably have the best feel for that. You've seen how kind of back and forth and ambivalent the ambulance service has been about that machine. Don and I have talked about it. Our thoughts were, if we are able to purchase this new one for the town of Madison, one, it will serve the area just like that one has always done. But on the other side, we would just take that 97 rescue after we take everything that belongs to the town of Madison off of it and equip this new one and say to the ambulance service, you can house it and do whatever you want to do.
Is there any equipment on there that ambulance service owns that we may have to buy or not buy, or we can transfer?
The only thing I can think of is fire extinguishers. I think it come with a couple flashlights. What about the roof ladder? Do you know on that, Dan? I mean, not the roof ladder, the attic ladder on the side. I think that's ours. But the Jaws of Life belongs to town of Madison, the Rescue 42, the Cascade system, the cribbing,
So nothing of great value?
medical, I think a medical bag does belong to them, but I would think that they would donate that right back to us, I would
That's right.
think.
Okay.
In the, yeah.
And all the lights that are on here come with this too?
Yes, it's as is, with everything, yeah. What I'm thinking too, as far as the lettering goes, I'm gonna call Tom Yauck, I got a note here to do that, is instead of the word Winslow, I think we can just put the word Madison. And that's gonna save us a lot of money, I would think. The 1907, or whatever it is on the end, I can't remember when I was started, but it was right around there.
We'll make it 1907.
Huh?
Nobody's going to argue with us.
If you want to leave it Winslow, we wouldn't have any more complaints.
We'll do that too. But the big thing is how we putting that cascade system. We got some ideas. We're gonna lay everything out and decide exactly where we want to put everything. And then if he can get his little welding skills to go with aluminum, or that's gonna be the only thing that's gonna be the extra expense that I can see. Which shouldn't be real bad, I don't think.
All right, what's our pleasure?
I'll go with your comment. The 70, up to 75, is that what you said?
So let's make it a motion then, if we authorize this town manager to spend up to $75,000,
I'll make it.
to negotiate up to $75,000.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to ask our car dealer, town manager to spend up to $75,000 to purchase this truck from Winslow. Any other questions?
You're not gonna put this in the paper tomorrow, are you?
No. I'd rather keep it as low-key as possible.
Yeah. That won't come on until later in the week.
Yeah, you won't see this till Wednesday, but hopefully we'll have an answer by then. But is there any, I don't think anyone has talked with George over at the AMS. Is there anything the board would like me or Don to do to?
Well, just notify them that we're looking into purchasing one. We got a chance to get a decent deal.
Okay.
And we'd like to, I mean, it's been a problem. He's been pretty hands off it. So I don't think there'll be an issue.
Where does that $2,500 that we get per year for that come from? Is that money that the town of Madison pays A&M? Because I got a little budget I go by,
And then probably we pay it to them and they pay it back to us.
Okay,
Well,
so,
not directly, kind of indirectly.
Indirectly.
We pay $7,000 a month for ambulance coverage, and that goes to their budget, and then in their budget, they create a line of $2,500 to, maintain the rescue.
Okay, seeing no other questions, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We put you in negotiations.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Don, thank you guys.
We got a work detail, so was it all right if we scoot out?
All
I don't
right,
want to hit and run, but the boys are up there working.
like crazy.
Thank you very much, guys.
You need to go warm up anyways.
I'm still cold.
All right, number 3, discuss contract for roadside mowing.
So in your packets, I think you see an example from Rick Drew, Aggressive Cuts LLC. He is the one that's done the roadside mowing for us for the last 3 years.
You have no idea, it's just bad.
Road commissioner has negotiated with him another 3-year contract. This is a result of putting out some feelers for competitive bids. There's really nobody else doing this to this degree. And both Jeff and I agree, if you can find someone that's really willing to cut 10 feet of roadside along 35 miles for about $2,000, that's a pretty good deal. So his 3 years would start June of '22 and run through October of '24. So the contract he's in right now runs out in October of this year. $2,090.20 per year is his fee. And this fellow, Rick Drew, he asked for this to be approved by the selectmen. So that's why it's coming before you tonight.
He's asking for the same thing again?
Pardon me?
How much does he get right now?
I think this year is about $2,000, so he raised it
So he's-
about $100, less than $100. Yeah.
Maybe we should have him negotiate.
I don't think I can do better doing that.
All right, looking for a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second.
I have a motion to accept the mowing, roadside mowing agreement with Rick Drew.
How'd he get to 20 cents?
Anybody,
What was,
any other questions?
yeah, I have one. How'd he get to 20 cents?
I don't know.
I'm sure he has a formula that he plugged into a spreadsheet, and that's what he came up with.
All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, discuss tax acquired property.
There's really 2 items I wanted to touch on under this category. The first of which is just an update on the only account that we have left for 2018, and that is the property out at 1162 Lakewood Road that has a lot of junk on it and a mobile home. That mobile home is currently occupied, but I did talk with the tenant who lives there right now. She is actively looking to move. And she told me last week that if she doesn't have a place to go by May 1st, she's going to move in with her father. So she does plan to be out of that trailer by the first week in May. So obviously having a tenant in there to deal with has impacted the amount of people who are willing to make a bid on it. So I talked with Don Berry, the realtor, this afternoon. He said that they've had 2 or 3 inquiries. There's one $10,000 cash offer that's come in, but that's the only one that's on the table right now. He and I have agreed to let that listing run for another week. Maybe if people can be assured that the tenant will be out by May, they might be more interested in making bids on that. So when those bids come in, they'll come back to you on the 26th of April. For you to decide whether you want to accept one, reject them all, start over, whatever you want to do with that property, you'll have your options to look at on the 26th of April. Just interestingly enough, we've had several inquiries at the town office. People want to live in it like it is. And so that's one of the things you kind of got to work through when you do a public bid process like this. The second thing I just wanted to bring up to see if the board wanted to discuss it further. A couple of meetings ago, Mr. Agopian talked about the town's policy for taking payments once we've foreclosed on a property. I went back and did some research. The only thing I found was a policy that was written back in 1998, and it really doesn't do anything other than say you're going to make a list of all the properties. And this may be why people call the town office every year and say, can I see your list? So perhaps we did it this way by just creating a list that was posted for a while of 6 or 8 properties that had been foreclosed on. The practice that I have followed over the last 5 years is to try to get people aware that they're heading towards foreclosure within those last couple of days so that they don't go over that timeline. But even if I do go over the timeline, I'm going to bring to you scenarios by which we need to deal with these, because the only rule that you have to go by for tax acquired is what it says in the town meeting warrant. The town meeting warrant says the selectmen are authorized to dispose of tax acquired property in the manner they see or deem to be in the best interest of the town. So that does give you the flexibility to put one out for listing for a couple of weeks. It also gives you the flexibility to do an auction, gives you the flexibility to work with people individually. So there's no really right or wrong way to approach it.
So, I don't want to put words in Mr. Gopin's mouth, but when we get to the end of 3 years, you haven't paid your taxes year 1, year 2, year 3. At that point, we foreclose,
Right.
right? I think what Mr. Gopin was saying, why aren't we doing it after 2 years?
Why don't we do what?
Why aren't we foreclosing after 2 years?
No, law says after your first year and you don't pay your taxes, there's a lien put on your house.
Right.
And then the town will write you a letter, 30 days, write you a letter saying that you gotta pay it.
Right.
You have 18 months to pay it. And what I'm saying, this 18 months, they know they have to pay their taxes.
Yep.
But they don't pay it, and they don't pay it again. So it means 3 years they've accumulated in those 18 months.
So, yeah,
So what I'm saying is, instead of saying, okay, you only have to pay 1 year, if you make them pay the whole thing up, then you guys, or we will have collected an extra $100,000 getting these people off the books. I'm not saying they're all gonna do it, but they're gonna find the money to come up with it. Whether they go to a bank, a friend, a cousin, or whatever.
So,
When we used to do it that way. And
I don't ever remember doing it that way. I remember people paying their first year, and they were back in good graces.
But then
Right.
you're gonna just put them back in the same place where they are this year.
So that's up to us, though. I mean, we can determine to change.
Right, and I'm not saying if there's a mental reason or if there's a physical reason, we could make exceptions for things like that.
Yeah. I mean,
But just not paying them, no, I can't accept that.
yeah. The exceptions get to be a problem, though. So that's, I mean, and we also got to look at that new law that
Right.
came into effect because former Governor LePage put in, right?
Right, he put in some age protection, so if the people are 65 or older, you can't just sell their property. You have to go through several steps. Depending on the market, I mean, you could sell it for a substantial amount of money, but if you did sell it for a substantial amount of money, anything you made over what your taxes, you have to give back to those people who didn't pay their taxes. So that's the state law that kind of protects towns from predatory foreclosure, which is not something that towns practice.
So in order to get back into the good graces, you have to pay all 3 years of your taxes before you can get the quitclaim deed.
Right.
So is that something we need to go, is that policy?
So
Is that you need to go to town meeting for that?
well, if you go to town meeting for that, then you have to change your article that's in town meeting, because the article in town meeting gives you the flexibility. So, a little history.
But it doesn't, that says we can do whatever we want with it.
Right.
But it doesn't say that in our policy has been that we can pay 1 year of the 3, the first year, right? And then we're now out of.
When you pay that, what you're doing is you're satisfying the lien.
Right.
So when that lien is satisfied, then the people can have the property deeded back to them. Once the property's been foreclosed on, you have the flexibility to deed it back to whomever you want. That's why some family members try to come in and say, well, I want my brother off of that deed, so I'll pay all the back taxes if you make a deal with me and deed it back to me. You can't do that before foreclosure. Many people ask if they can, but you can do it after foreclosure.
I have one question, when I listened to you speak there. So I owe 2018, 19, and 20. Okay, I come in, I pay 2018 off, okay? But I haven't paid 19, so why do we give them a quick claim when they're right back into a lien again?
They're in a lien, but they haven't been foreclosed on 19. That foreclosure on 19 won't happen until February.
It won't happen till 21.
February of 22.
Yeah.
So everybody that's got a 18 outstanding this past year
Right.
also has a 19 outstanding that's been
Right.
liened. And the clock is ticking on that 19 lien as well.
Yeah.
So I look back over the last 5 years. On average, we've had 8 properties a year come into tax foreclosure, where the town has actually taken possession of them. A couple of years ago, of the 8, we took all 8 to auction. 4 of them were land only, a couple were empty houses, and we sold all of them at auction. And the money that we made, we put into an account that we used to help offset blight and other problems around town. Last year, we were able to work out arrangements with everybody because those people really wanted to stay in their homes. And I will say that of the people we helped last year with their 18s, only one of them is on the, with their 17s 2 years ago, only one of them came back this year. So there were 2 situations last year where we had properties that we knew they weren't going anywhere. So that's when we gave them 30 days to pay everything. And we even went above the taxes and say, you pay your Madison electric bill, you pay your sanitary bill, you pay your water bill, you pay everything. And if you do that, then the selectmen will deed the property back to you. If you don't, then we'll put it up for sale. So both of those properties were valuable enough that the people found the money. The other thing is, some of these properties, it's just not worth it. We couldn't get we're going to struggle to get our money's worth out of this one on Lakewood Road, just because of the condition it's in. It's just not worth it. So I appreciate the case by case. I think that if I come to you and I say, it's pretty clear that this person hasn't paid their taxes, they haven't paid their water or sanitary bill, and I would recommend that we give them 30 days to pay everything, or put it on the market and sell it. That's an option we can take, but I don't think that we should create a policy that says that's what we're going to do with every case.
I agree with that.
All right, any other questions? All right, moving on. Discuss proposed payment in lieu of insurance policy.
Okay, we've discussed this at the last couple of meetings. This came up during my evaluation. And so, as the selectmen requested, we put out a simple survey to the 10 full-time employees that currently receive or are eligible to receive health insurance. Of those 10, 4 indicated that they would be interested in this. I was one of those 4, and the other 3 were members of the highway department. And those members of the highway department, from what they've expressed, they have alternative methods of getting insurance coverage. So that would be something that would apply to them. Tammy did a lot of homework on this. She talked to other agencies. We even ran it by Matt Tarasevich, who's our labor negotiations lawyer. He made a comment that I put in his email in your packet. The recommendation is not to give this as a cash bonus, but only offer it as part of the contribution to your retirement. The other recommendation is to use a figure that is 50% of the value of an individual's insurance policy. So right now, the town of Madison insurance policy for an individual is right around $14,000. So if you were to offer someone payment in lieu of insurance, we would recommend you only offer 50% of that, or up to $7,000 in that regard. The way it could get a little sticky at this point is you have 4 of the 10 employees in a union contract, and that union contract does not expire until June of '23. So it's got over 2 years left on the current contract. And so that could complicate things if you wanted to make this something that was available to all employees.
Now, how many full-time employees are we talking about? 10?
We have 10.
10. All right, now how many are in the contract, under contract?
Four in the union.
And
Yeah.
it's 4 in the union,
Yeah.
and all 4 of those wanna,
3 of the 4 say they're interested.
okay.
They would consider it if it was available to them. That's the best way to say it.
Now, well,
Go
how
ahead.
come this wasn't, when this was brought up, are we looking to save money? Are we looking to, what are we looking
Well,
for?
I think Mr. Moody brought it up in our, well, I don't know if I can say that, can I?
Yeah, because we talked about it outside of executive session.
Yeah.
It was something that
He brought it up
was offered.
as a way to offer Tim a bit more, I guess.
Right.
And so that's one of the ways we could do it. I mean, it is gonna be a little
Well-
challenging, because I don't think you wanna open the union contract.
I wouldn't recommend it.
I mean, 'cause once you do that, you open everything, I
Right.
think.
Right.
So I mean, the only thing we're gonna deal with right now is whether we're gonna give it that $7,000 to Tim. That's the only thing, or the town manager, excuse me. Mr. Savage.
I guess that's my thought is the union contract, if they want to try to negotiate that in 2 years, that's, it's an option for them to do it then.
Yeah.
That's why they have the contract. If they don't like it, they should have negotiated it last time, I guess. Where it's a cost-saving measure, I don't have an issue doing this whatsoever. I mean, if he signs up for insurance tomorrow, it's gonna cost us $14,000. If this prevents him from doing it, we save $7,000.
Mhm.
So I don't have an issue doing this.
Well, we're looking for a motion, I guess.
Well, wait. If you're gonna do something like that, why don't you, you, on insurance, it's very tricky, because I still say it's a benefit, and the benefit, you either use it or you don't. And this is simply a benefit right now. And I understand what he's saying, but then again, on the other hand, he has the same contract as everybody else in the town. They all have the exact same contract. If you want to do things like this, my question would be, why didn't you guys have him on a separate contract?
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, it's been a while. We haven't done that. I mean, I don't think the last town manager was on a separate contract either, right?
Who's that, Dana?
And I don't think Mr. Dean was
He
either.
was on a
They
separate
were on a
contract.
separate contract.
They were both on a separate contract, yeah. At that time, I don't know.
I never asked for a contract, and so part of that is probably on me. I do remember that at the time when you were interviewing folks, looking for a replacement when Dana left, it was also around the same time that the board had just updated the personnel policy. So I think the feeling was, now that we've updated the personnel policy, and we also have this union contract that kind of mirrors the personnel policy, then everybody goes by this and we don't need a contract. So, I'm not opposed to a contract, but I believe that was the thinking back in 2013, 2014.
And if you're looking to save money, that's what you're looking to do. Then you can just offer everybody in 3 years here, or 2 years, whatever it is, say, hey, everybody gets a single plan. Because I know when I was teaching, and because I chose to have a family, I was getting $15,000-16,000 for the health insurance. Education and the municipalities have probably the best health policies in the state.
It's a pretty good program.
Right, both of them are.
Yeah.
And 1 year, one goes up, next year, the other one's down, goes up, and they keep jiggling back and forth, and people keep jumping back and forth. They used to do that. It's up to like 25,000. At one time, they was even going to count that in as your salary, part of your salary. So, but to get everything fair, what they did, you got what you needed. And Mr. Vinciano will attest to this, because when it was cheap or inexpensive, and you get a family plan at 7,000, and you get a single plan at 7,000, you get a family plan at 15,000, we're doing the same job, but I'm getting $8,000 more than him. And so I could see that coming out as an issue, because we're doing the same job, and we're not getting the same amount of money. But that's because of family. But if it's a benefit, it's something you want or you don't want. If these 3 people can get it cheaper someplace else, then they're not doing it to save us money, so they're doing it, they're getting a better policy. But
Yeah, I don't know what Mr. Moody's thoughts were. I don't know if it was, I don't know, I don't want to use the word bonus, but I don't know if that's what he was thinking.
3%.
Or a way to give,
they get a 3% raise, right?
I'm talking about the
Oh,
town manager. I'm not talking about them at this
Okay.
time. I mean, I think they can negotiate that at
Yeah.
that point. I mean, that would save, if those 3 people did that, that certainly would save money. And, but I'm not sure what his thought process was on this.
Yeah, he spoke to me privately last week, and he indicated that he's in favor of it for all employees. So that was his thoughts. Obviously, I can't speak for him, but that's what he shared.
I tend to be in favor of it for all employees as well. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
The only thing that's difficult with that is that how are we going to get the union contract? How are we going to get that into the union contract without opening everything up?
You just have to wait the 2 years.
Until then.
And that's the simplest thing. And as far as I'm concerned, this is not a matter of compensation that I asked for. I think it's been healthy to discuss it as an option, but it doesn't make any difference to me. So at this point, I appreciate the offer, but if you want to wait until 2023 and then just have this in the back of your mind for personnel policy and union contract, that doesn't bother me. I think it actually would be better than putting the town manager in a situation where he gets a benefit that nobody else gets. So I'd rather not do that.
All right, so we'll move forward. All right, selectmen's concerns, Mr. Savage.
Just one last question on this.
Okay, I guess, is that your concern?
Well, yeah, it might as well be, yeah. Can we do like an addendum to the town policy, if this is something we want to do, to the town policy like we have for other things in the past, and it's just added into the back?
Yeah, I guess, you could.
Okay, you're just gonna take 6 of the people then, or you taking all 10?
No, we're taking the people covered by the town policy. I mean, the other people chose to have a union, and they chose someone to negotiate them. That's what they negotiated. I mean, I don't think one should really hinge on the other.
And so they could do it on the
When
contract.
the contract, right, when they negotiate, they
The only
can.
thing I would say is that puts the town manager in a tough spot.
That's gonna put a lot of people in the
That's
spot.
gonna put him in a tough spot to do that. I would think.
So the other 3 that are, I'm sorry, keep jumping in. The other 3 that are interested in doing this are union folks?
Yes.
All 3 of them, I see. Okay.
I guess that's all I got. Other than they could go to union out and they get the town policy to follow, and they're
Nobody heard that.
full speed ahead.
Yeah.
Couple simple solutions.
Yeah. Mr. Gopi, anything?
What's that?
Any concerns?
No, none.
Why?
No,
All right, I'm good. Citizens? No citizens' concerns? Looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor, motion carries. We adjourned at 7:24.